All right, so Fight Club. I thought it was all right. I didn't. I was wrong. Apparently, I've never watched it, but I used to. In high school, I used to. My personal experience with it. I used to. In like 2015, 2016, I used to ride my bike to my high school, and I would listen to the Pixie song a lot. That was one of my. That was on my rotation for my angsty high school playlist back in the day. Where is my mind? But that's the only thing I knew of the book. And I used to go on Goodreads a lot and like read random reviews for books that wouldn't actually read the full book for, but I would know of them, and so that was one of the books I knew of. I mean, everyone kind of knows it by name. It's got that place in the pop culture. Everyone kind of, it's sort of a, you know, a modern American classic or whatever you could say. It's like Taxi Driver. It's like a lot of things. It's like The Matrix. I mean, those are two movies that are pretty similar to it, I think, in terms of themes and whatnot. But yeah, I mean, going into it, I thought that it was just going to be I thought it was going to be an action movie mostly. I like with a little bit of social commentary, a la The Matrix. But it wasn't like that. It was a lot more like Train Spotting actually in terms of the satire and the humor. But it's actually funnier. It's actually more lighthearted than Train Spotting. It doesn't get as dark. Um, it's a spoof. I mean, it's like a live action South Park. It's kind of more like that level of satirical, which I did not. I literally didn't think that it was going to be like that going in. I don't know anything. I didn't know anything about it other than the song and the general concept. So that was interesting. It actually made it better for me. That bumped it up in my opinion, because I figured it was going to be this like super serious, like I don't know, like kind of like how Reservoir Dogs is, where it's still funny, like the characters are still charismatic and the dialogue is still humorous, but it's like super serious and like gritty. This wasn't this, even though it's disturbing and it's supposed to be, even though it's kind of dark, and it definitely does have dark moments, like when he beats the shit out of Jared Leto. Uh, it it still, for the most part, even when it gets dark and everything, it's like a satire. It's like Candide or something. It's like it's written the way that a satirical novel would be written, but for a film, and that makes sense because it's an adaptation of a satirical novel. So and I think that actually makes it a good adaptation. I've never read the book, but it makes it a good literary adaptation in the sense that it does kind of feel like a book at times. It reminds me of like books like Vanity Fair by William Makepeace Thackeray or The Red and the Black. It reminds me of certain aspects of those where it's just that ridiculousness, that satire. Tobias Smollett, he's a writer who inspired Charles Dickens. Um, he's basically the Dickens of the 18th century. Um, it reminded me of that, but oh god, okay. But yeah, I mean, I'd say the only thing that I didn't like about the only thing I'd take points off outright for was the CGI, and not even all of it because it was very weird. But there were basically like two random little, I wouldn't even call them scenes. They were just like two shots in the movie that were just really bad, like two little snippets where the Fight Club was fighting, or I think it was like the very first Brad Pitt Edward Norton fight. It's just like they couldn't be bothered to. Did the actors not want to fight each other? Like, could they not be bothered to learn a little fight choreography, work with the stunt people on it? Because the stunt crew or whatever, the team, get some doubles even. It's like, because then they did an actual fight towards the end, didn't they? And that was real. Like, so there's just this random. It's like when they're fighting in the parking lot. Like that one shot is like fucking horrendous, and it completely pulled me out of the movie for just like a little bit. But it didn't make sense why it was still in there. I mean, I felt like I was watching like the rough cut or something, like where they just threw in like raw, like random like test shots or something like that. That one thing, it just it was just weird. I don't know why they even did that, because then there's one other part where he's imagining himself having sex with Marla Singer, played by Helena Bonham Carter, and she that one scene is that the CGI in that scene is really good. That is just, the CGI in that scene looks better than like modern movie CGI looks. Like that has that looks better than like MCU slop, and that's an old movie. I mean, it's older than the 21st century even. So, you know, so far even. So yeah, it's well, it'll always be older than but yeah. Anyway, getting a little caught in the weeds here. Uh, so I just don't get why the CGI was inconsistent like that when they. I mean, unless they just put all their budget into the one good one, the one good little shot of CGI, and then just skipped out on the others. Like they sacrificed the others to make that one scene really good. But I don't know. That was random to me though. It was just the randomness of the unevenness of the CGI took me out of it for just a little bit. But you could say that about the whole movie though, in terms of its overall quality. It's an interesting one because I think that you could. People say it's controversial. I think the controversy, if I had to guess, because I didn't really do a lot of research before this, I'm kind of just winging this, but if I had to guess, I would assume that the controversy derives largely from the fact that the movie is kind of like a bad taste. It's like kind of like a bad movie. It's like the movie has bad taste. Like it's like something that an edgy teenager would think is cool, like someone in that overgrown adolescent mindset would find appealing. It's a little goofy because of that. It's a little over the top. Um, but it's still fun. That's the thing. It's still fun to watch, and it's good in a way that makes me feel like it does ultimately deserve its place in the canon of modern Western cinema, or whatever you want to call it. Like as far as like popular American movies go, it definitely. I think it deserves its place there. I think it was well executed, but I do also think it's a weird one because I think it is, for the most part, a well-made, well-executed, well-conceived film. But it's also kind of dumb. It's also kind of like edgy loser shit, and I'll get into that a little more towards the end. But I do think that that's the weird thing about it. It's like it's like better than it should be almost in a way, but also maybe. No, I wouldn't say. I don't think it goes both ways. But actually, I would. I think in this case the cliche would actually work. I think that it's better than it's simultaneously better than it should be and worse than it should be, because it's not quite as. I can't take it as seriously because it's so satirical and kind of juvenile. Um, it, it, I can't take it as seriously as something like something similar, like The Matrix. The Matrix is more kind of I don't know. It's just it's more tactful. The first one, we're just talking about the first one, is more tactful in terms of the philosophy that it well, the worldview, but also just the philosophical existential themes that it tackles. I feel like it does that a lot more, just in a more adult way than Fight Club does. And then even Trainspotting is super dark, and it's it's very, it's pretty dark, and it's the same. It's the same type of overgrown adolescent kind of perspective that it's coming from. It's got that angst and that edge to it, just like Fight Club does. But I think even that one, and maybe it's because it's European, I don't know, but that one, not to shit too much on Americana, but like I do think that does play a part. Let's say American Psycho too. That's another one. That's another edgy edgelord or whatever kind of movie. That one, the satire is very clear. I feel like in this one the satire is not as clear. I think that kind of takes points away, in my opinion, because it seems like I think the reason why this movie is so goofy is, well, I mean, the themes, it doesn't hold up as well as those other movies do, because I think that the particular brand of angst that this movie is conveying, or encapsulates, or however you want to put it, it's not as relevant anymore. It's kind of like listening to someone complain about something really trivial, like, it's very 90s in the sense that I think the economy has changed a lot since it came out, and I think a lot of people today would be really happy to work the soulless corporate desk job. There are a lot of people out there who would kill to to have like a regular middle class like fucking desk jockey, desk, whatever, uh, wage slave. I think a lot of people would actually want that wage slave lifestyle because you can't even get those jobs now. Those used to be taken for granted. That used to be a given when the movie came out, when the book was written and the movie came out. You didn't have to think twice. It was more people wanted to be, so it's like it comes across as a little spoiled and a little dated because, it's not like that anymore. Those shitty jobs are competitive. Those shitty jobs are competitive and desirable because the quality of everything has gone down so much. Everything's kind of dystopian now, where it's like, you're gonna be stuck in a shitty apartment and you're gonna work. A lot of people run the risk of going to college, graduating, and still having to work at like fucking Walmart or what, and maybe not that, but like retail, like for the rest of their lives. It's like at best you could be a waiter in like a, somewhat slightly upscale restaurant, but like that's the kind of the reality for a lot of people now, the economic reality for a lot of people, a lot of younger people especially. So it just doesn't, like it's kind of douchey. It's kind of annoying, the whole Gen X thing of like, oh, I just want to like sit around all day and smoke pot and like, be deep and like not do anything. Like I'm just going to choose not to, I'm just going to choose inaction. Life is meaningless, so I'm just going to not do anything for my life. I'm just going to sit around and do nothing all day. That, and I would be a hypocrite. I would be remiss if I didn't acknowledge that I completely do that myself. But like if you showed this movie to a lot of Zoomers, not that they're, again, like, they're pretty arrogant people. So not to, don't mistake me when I say this, like, oh, their opinions really matter, like a whole fuck of a lot. It's like they're kind of a little too young and dumb and kind of annoying right now to be, I think, fully legitimate in terms of having like that generational voice. They got to hit their 30s before they can really have opinions like that. But I think for now, I think if you showed it to them, I think it would just piss them off, to be honest. I think it would kind of annoy them. And I do think that the criticisms of capitalism are a little misguided, and not in a way that the movie is aware of. That's the risk with getting political too. If you get too political, you can kind of fuck up your shit a little. And I think that's another problem I have with this movie is that it like I don't think that the whole of capitalism is to blame for people being unhappy or whatever. Like I think there are more, or at least there's a more productive way to attack that subject. It's such a broad subject. It's such a cliche too. So I don't know. I think a lot of other movies, there are a lot of other movies in this edgy kind of like 90s liberal category that do a better job of like tackling the subject matter than this one does. I feel like this one's almost a little too, it almost believes in itself a little too much. Like that's the thing about America. Like American Psycho is one of my favorite books and movies of all time, and the reason for that is, as much as I like to, as funny as it is and as goofy as the character is, and as like kind of funsy as it is to kind of pretend to want to be Bateman, it's like I totally wouldn't want to be him at all. And I like it's just like the making fun of him is funnier than that's like more substantive. Making fun of him is more fun than being him would be or whatever. Like I don't watch that movie and go, oh, I like actually want to be him for real. It's like, no. With this one, I get the impression that maybe the writer or the director or whoever, somebody working on it, I think kind of likes it a little too much. And it's kind of stupid. And it's like a little bit like, okay, yeah, I get it though. Every guy should probably want, like any self-respecting man should want to be Tyler Durden to an extent, or at least Brad Pitt in the 90s, for obvious reasons. But I don't think, that being said, I don't think that, it's like Patrice O'Neill put it. I'm just going to totally rip him off here. But it's like how he said in a radio interview It's like it's 100% it's a movie that like loser guys use to feel cool. It's literally that's the niche it fills. That's the purpose it serves. It's to make kind of like scrawny loser white guys, especially, feel better about themselves. I'm half Asian, so I don't really fully fall into the camp of scrawny white guy, but I am pretty skinny, and I am, I think a lot of people would consider me to be somewhat unmasculine or whatever. Like I'm not ripped or whatever. Like I'm kind of like skinny fat and like lame in that conventional sense. So I could relate to certain aspects of it, but I guess this could lead us into what I liked the most about the movie, because I don't really have a problem with it. I just don't think it's as effective as it could be because it's a little too immature, and I think it's because it's not self-aware enough. I think who for whatever reason it kind of believes in itself a little too much, and I think that's kind of douchey. Even with the message at the end, even with like the actual details of the plot, it's like, yeah, it spoiler alert, by the way. It I mean, the movie acknowledges that Tyler Durden goes too far, and it acknowledges that way of dealing with things is not the best. So it's like Taxi Driver in that regard. It's like you're not supposed to glorify it, but I feel like out of all of the edgy movies I've seen, this is the one that kind of does glorify itself a little too much. But it's not, I wouldn't even say it's like to a dangerous extent. I would say that it's like malignant. Benign, the other one. I would say that it's benign in terms of its own kind of self-endorsement, but that makes it douchey. All it does is kind of hurt itself, is what I'm saying. It hurts itself. It's self-defeating in the sense that it takes itself a little too seriously for what it is. You get other movies like Reservoir Dogs where it's like, yeah, it is this edgy kind of like, tough guy thing, but it's you watch it and you go like, yeah, that's obvious, like, that's the point. And there's like meta commentary. There's an overarching, a theme or message that's where you get the substance from the movie. That's where the point comes from. With this one, it's like the point is a little too much. The style is a little too much of the substance, I think. Just to put it in the simplest terms possible, I think the movie itself gets a little caught up in its own bullshit. I think it, which also makes it more entertainment than art, and I think it could have actually been really artful if it had just made a few slight tweaks, maybe drawn from the book more, but I don't know because I haven't read the book, so I couldn't tell you if it. And I might read the book now that I've seen the movie. Actually, it might be one of those instances where I bite the bullet on it now, and just read the whole thing just to compare it because it's not very long. I just missed it in high school. I missed the boat on that, and that's the other thing too. It might just be for younger people. It might be super cool to like some random, maybe not to a Zoomer though. That's the thing. Maybe it's dated. Maybe it's just a time capsule too. Maybe it is just a product of the '90s. But I could still see. I think I could still see some edgy, like 15-year-old and high school freshman reading it or something, or just watching it, and getting something out of it, and like that's their shit. That's like their bag. But I don't know. I don't think it's mine. It's definitely not mine. But I also like those other movies more as the one like I'm more of an American Psycho guy. It's like it's a contemporary of that, and when I could have chosen between the two, and I made my choice already. So it's like it's a little weird to watch it now. That's just my perspective anyway. That's just my personal relationship with the work. But yeah, I would say that whole existential dread about working in an office, at least to me, it comes across as a little trivial. It's like a bit of an overreaction, the whole thing. And I think it's the point to an extent, but I also think that again the movie depicts it as like, oh, this is a real problem, and like, yeah, it's a little dated, it's a little immature in that respect, a little undercooked of a perspective. I think I don't think they realized how much worse things would get. I don't think they realized what they were losing at the time, and I think if you asked them, even they would look back on it and go like, yeah, we were kind of little over. There was a bit of an overreaction on our part. I wouldn't, I would be surprised if, I mean, you could even do, I don't know. It'd be funny if they had like some kind of like internet sketch or something where you had like Edward Norton as Jack or whoever his character, the narrator, whoever he's supposed to be. If you had like Edward Norton and Tyler Durden, or I mean Brad Pitt, get back and do like a quick thing where they're like, "Fuck, I wish I could have." I don't think they ever would, but it would be funny for them to, like, kind of make fun of it a little or something. In retrospect, like 26 years later. Yeah. But it's my personal takeaway ultimately is that the movie is still, even with how much it likes itself. I think even with how much even with the self love aspect of the movie, in terms of it kind of endorsing itself a little too much, I still think that it's essentially saying two separate things. Um, the first being that modern men do need to get their shit together, and be better. Not in terms of you need to be better, and I don't know, not that fucking male feminist shit or whatever, but they need to be more productive, heroic versions of themselves. They need to put their phones down. They need to get out of bed, and have a proper diet and a regular exercise regimen, and they need to reclaim their own masculinity. If we're going to talk about it like that, I think it's one of those things. It's like how people, some people have said that Rogan is like the Gwyneth Paltrow of men for men. This is kind of like this. This is almost like the Eat, Pray, Love for men. This is like one of those kind of corny, like guy manuals. This is the guy's guide, the man's guide to being a man type of thing. It kind of gives me those douchey, disingenuously masculine vibes. Um, but going hand in hand with that, it's like the society around them. We live in a society. It needs to fucking let people do that more. It needs to give men more outlets for male camaraderie, for just all of the thing, like for becoming better versions of themselves. Society needs to accommodate that more, and stop discouraging them, stop holding them back from doing that. And the movie basically, I think it does ultimately, even with the flaws in mind, I think it still does ultimately say, like, hey, both sides are wrong. Nobody's fully correct in this. There's no real hero in this whole thing. Tyler Durden was, Tyler Durden's fake, but the main Edward Norton was wrong that's basically it. I'm having a hard time putting this all together because this is like the critical point I want to make. So I want to get it right. But if I can just say it as if I can just try to say it as simply as possible, I think the takeaway, what the movie boils down to essentially, if I can ever get to the fucking point, is that Edward Norton's character dealt with his problems poorly. He was misguided. He stayed up too late. He wouldn't go to sleep. I mean, the whole thing happens because he wouldn't go to fucking sleep. He wouldn't get on a better sleeping schedule. He could have totally, gotten what he wanted by just being healthier, sleeping more, sleeping better, dieting, exercising, just doing all of that. Like, that's what regular people do to cope, That's what everybody else does when you get to a certain point in your life, you kind of just, you don't give up. You don't necessarily give up or conform, but you do compromise, and you get your shit together. Luckily, if you're lucky, a lot of people don't, but if you're lucky, the reasonable kind of sane, normal thing to do is to hit the gym, and go outside, and go to the park, or find like outlets, find like a hobby, find some interests to fucking live a more fulfilling life, meet people, have a family. It's like there are ways to have a meaningful, substantive life and still work like a shitty job. Most people do. That's what the middle class is for. It's so you can have you work some mediocre, fucking boring ass job so that you can have a regular life. Or you can, if you take it upon yourself, you can have a fucking amazing life and still work a fucking desk job. I mean, you just have to deal with the pressures of that properly. And it does get to people. It does wear you down after a while. But I feel like even like Office Space, which basically which basically completely derails and derides the corporate, whatever, middle class, sorry, white collar, uh, working culture. I feel like even that one kind of has like a better coping mechanism, or like a better way to deal with the frustration that it tackles than Fight Club does even. I feel like, because I feel like Fight Club kind of glorifies itself a little too much. I don't think they wanted to kill Durden really. I think they liked him too much. I think they just kind of they felt obligated to. That's just, I mean, I know that this isn't like a literal thing I'm saying. I understand that it happens in the book. They're just adapting the book, but the impression that I get is that it's like they kind of just they throw in the ending. They throw in like the reasonable part of the message right in at the very end, but for the most part it is kind of like a funsy endorsement of like stupid stupid shit, like a kind of an immature point of view, something that a teenager would think is it's like, that's what it is. It's like Holden Caulfield, in Catcher in the Rye. It's like it's like the world according to some fucking teenager who didn't get enough sleep the night before. It's relatable. It's it's I think it's universal enough to be appealing enough to be a thing, but it's still like obviously wrong. It's like, yeah, we've all had bad days, but I don't know. You don't have to become the Unabomber, and I feel like this one kind of I think it's, and maybe it's not that it really believes itself. Maybe it's more just that it's kind of like more entertainment than art, so it doesn't really worry too much about what it's saying. Maybe it didn't have like a political prerogative, as much as it maybe should have, or maybe I thought it did, I guess. But that's the impression I get, is that it's like a little too. It's a little. There's maybe it's just fluff. Maybe it's an element of fluff where it's like, oh yeah, just throw that in at the end. Yeah, we got to. It's like a movie that just wants like to. It's like it gives you the. It was mostly just living out that fantasy. It's mostly just living out the fantasy of being like 90% of the movie is like the kind of vicariously living out the fantasy of you have Edward Norton as the relatable one, you have Tyler Durden or Brad Pitt as the the one that you want to be. The audience wants to be him just as much as Norton's character does. And like 90% of the movie is basically just the power fantasy of being that guy, being going from being loser guy to cool guy, beta to alpha or whatever. And then at the last 10%, they just throw, it's like, oh yeah, we forgot, yeah, we're supposed to say like, oh, this is actually wrong or something. Let's throw in the little messagey thing right at the end. Yeah. I thought it was all right, but it's a little cringe. Like the scenes of him beating himself up, it's a little dated, a little goofy, but the funny parts are funny, and I appreciated that, because I thought it was going to be a downer like Trainspotting. It's like a dreary, that one might be more effective as a satire and as a messagey movie, but it's fucking depressing. Fight Club at least was fun. I actually liked the humor. I liked the comic relief. I liked the satire, the satirical tone. I actually liked all of that a lot. I felt like it actually had the opposite problem, where it was a little too goofy to be serious. When it tried to be serious, it just didn't quite work. But when it was funny, it was good. It was entertaining. I'd watch it again, and I'd watch it with other people to get their reactions. Like it still works as that type of litmus test movie too, where I'm sure people have a bunch of different opinions on it. The controversy makes it enduring. It gives it a longer lasting legacy, because you can debate it with people. It's like The Shining. It's like movies like that where they are capable of having multiple interpretations. That's what makes them iconic. That's what makes them stand out from the rest. But yeah, I just think it was a little too much. Like I said, my personal opinion is that the movie kind of agrees with Norton and Pitt a little too much. It likes Tyler Durden a little too much. It sympathizes with the protagonist a little too much. It lacks the nuance. Like when he like beats the shit out of himself to get his boss to, to like sue his boss and everything. It's like, yeah, it's a little manifesto. It's a little manifesto-y for real, which kind of makes me uncomfortable. But it's also a little bit like, well, it's like, dude, you're like really unhealthy. Like I would know because I have never gotten very good sleep, and I've been plenty angsty in my life and continue to be, and and maybe it takes one to know one, but I came away from it like, okay, dude, this is me addressing Edward Norton's character. It's like, get some fucking sleep, take some fucking vitamins or something, and find like a more productive way, find like a more grown up way of like dealing with your shit, and maybe even still commenting on, like, you could still rebel and like rail against everything, but just, I don't know, it's like a little juvenile, and I think that's just because it's a little old, which I still like. I still like the aesthetics a lot, though. That's the other thing, because it's that turn of the century, late '90s, early 2000s vibe. Um, I really liked the look of the film. I liked the lighting, the color grading, everything like that was, the design, like just the even like the soulless corporate like office, like the clothes and stuff, like the set design, the costuming and everything, even just subtle things like that were good. I didn't think that I do think Brad Pitt looks kind of again, nothing wrong with genuine homosexuality, but I will say, don't misconstrue this, but he does look a little fruity, and it's like, it's not like, and when it's trying to be super cool, when it's trying to be like uber tough guy masculine, I thought that was kind of weird that but I guess that's just the '90s look too. There's always been that kind of metrosexual fashion trend in the '80s and '90s especially. But I just thought that was kind of weird because he doesn't look like a super badass to me. He looks a little like he's going to go to like a. That's just how he looks to me. I'm not like being negative when I say this. He just looks. He literally looks like he's going to go to, like he's dressed to go to like a rave at like a gay club or something. Like he's going to go drop acid at like a techno rave, and then make out with some guys. I don't know. It's just like the bleached blonde hair and the red leather jacket and everything. It's just like, okay, I don't know. That's not the aesthetic I would have gone with if I was going to make like a tough guy character like that. You'd probably be better off going with just like, I don't know, the tried and true, maybe even just like a black leather jacket and like a wife beater or something. I don't know, but I think that's the point. Again, that's just a '90s thing. So that's to me, that's a little dated too. I can't take it as seriously. I don't know. That's just me. But yeah. But I think coming away from it, it's like, I still think the imperative to live a more meaningful life is important. I think that the movie got that right. I think it got that aspect right, where it's like, yeah, don't just sit there and rot in your fluorescent lit desk, cubicle desk, whatever, for 4 or 5 decades until you retire. Like it's like, yeah, live a little, seize the day. Dead Poet Society, seize the day. You know, get out there and do more. That you have an imperative. You owe it to yourself to make sure that you live a well-lived, fulfilling, meaningful life, even if your job kind of sucks, which for most people it does. Most people just have to work. It's just, it's nice that we have a system where we try to make that as convenient as possible, and not convenient, but like, I don't know, just try to make that as seamless as possible. But yeah, you gotta work. You gotta, like, you can't be a kid forever. It's like, this is how the world works. This is life. So I just don't be out of touch. Get out of that coddled perspective and acknowledge it. Accept that that's the way things are, and then maybe go from there. But accepting it would probably be healthier than railing against it the way that Edward Norton's character does in this. I just feel like it's a little juvenile. Yeah, like I've said. Like you could go to, like, I don't know, get some sleep, go to the gym, have a fucking salad, drink some water, and then maybe think, if your job really sucks that much, then maybe try to get a different one. And if you're like 40 and you just found out that you really want to be like a fucking veterinarian or something, then go to fucking vet school, like they did, like the Asian guy in the movie, where he wanted to be a veterinarian, and Durden forced him to do that. Like I like that aspect of his message. I will say I agree with that part of the philosophy. Like take those risks, make those like not risks, take some action. You know, don't just sit around and think about it though. Like do shit. You gotta do shit. That's what real men do. They take action. They make things happen. I liked that part of it, and so for that I'll give it. Yeah, I'll give it. I don't like doing ratings. I'll give it an 8.5 out of 10 though. I'll take away half a star for the weird flashes of bad CGI, and I'll take away 1 star just because, again, as I've said, like I don't like there's a little bit of douchiness. There just is a little bit of like, you know, you could probably argue that this is like kind of an, you know, I don't even want to say incel movie, but it is kind of like a loser movie. It's like a loser guy movie, you know, and those can be fun, but it's like kind of like a loser guy movie, a little too unironically for me. There are better loser guy, like edgy movies that you could watch that are fun, and also that are still fun in that kind of like self-indulgent kind of angsty teenage boy way, but they're also they are still that, and they're still that and fucking like good movies, you know, and like, and they have something meaningful to say. I feel like this one gets a little bit, it's a little light on the substance, maybe, just for me. It's a little confused, I think. Its message is a little confused. Its worldview is a little like immature, like I've said, and a little dated. But that's just me. I don't know. What do you guys think? Comment. Give me some feedback. I need some listener engagement. You know, that's how it's supposed to be, right? That's how you're supposed to like boost your channel. That's how you grow your brand, right? You get people to you trick people into commenting and liking and all that bullshit. I don't care. I don't care what you guys do. I'm cool. I want this podcast. You know what? I want this podcast I'm doing to be the Fight Club of podcasts on YouTube. I want my channel to be the Fight Club of of obscure YouTube channels with 14 subscribers. All right, but I'm gonna go. I went over my 20-minute limit that I set for myself. So, but this is also a review, so maybe it's not too bad. Next one will be Breakfast Club, another angsty movie. So look forward to that. And yeah, I'll see you all later. Oh, and real quick, I just wanted to say that I do think the movie, the best thing about the movie is that it is a great deconstruction of Edward Norton's insecurity and self-hatred, and the effects, like the consequences of having like a wounded ego. And you know, he has sympathetic qualities, but you know, he's a lot like the Taxi Driver guy, Travis Bickle, in the sense that if he just dealt with that, none of the bad shit would have happened. And I feel like the movie does actually do a very good job of depicting that in particular. Just the inner turmoil of his character is very well done. And I think I forgot to specifically mention that when I was doing the review. So I just wanted to throw that in real quick. I think it's a very good deconstruction of just a very real, relatable, and you know, and yeah, modern. I think that's actually the most relevant that the movie gets. That's very much relevant, alive and well today with the whatever you want to call it, like the male loneliness epidemic or whatever. That whole like low self-esteem, like I don't like myself very much. The self-hatred that Edward Norton has, to the point where he literally hallucinates someone else having sex with the girl that he has sex with, and being a leader and everything. That is very well done, and maybe the twist alone makes the movie deserve its like classic status or whatever. But yeah, I just wanted to throw that in real quick. That part actually got me, and I don't know if this is like peculiar or whatever, but that part actually got me a little emotional when it turned, you know, and I know the twist. I knew the twist already. It's like one of those super, like, I don't know, well-known common knowledge twists, but I actually really, that was like the kernel of the movie that I enjoyed the most, was that one little part where it's like, where I don't know, just that one little thing where it's like, that realization that it's like, damn, this guy actually was pretty, Like, he actually did have a lot of good qualities, and he just literally, he just didn't, he believed in himself so little that he had to abstract all of his strengths and, you know, personify them, because he couldn't possibly believe that he was capable of, like, inspiring others. And even if it was all bad in the end, by the way, even if it was all to blow up, you know, office buildings and stuff, it's just that part of it kind of it kind of depressed me. But it was like that struck a chord with me, a genuine emotional chord. Was when it turned out, it was like, oh shit, he really did do all of that on his own. He really, you know, and like, especially with the romance between him and Marla Singer, it's like she really did she liked him. She really did like him, and he really did have the confidence and everything to pull off, you know, pursuing a relationship with her. That made me feel bad, you know, for him. And it kind of, it was that was a little too, that hit close to home for me. I liked that part a lot. That he just, like, he was just so caught up in his insecurity and his anxiousness and his whatever, I mean, he really hates himself. I don't know if I would go as far as to say that for me, but just that, you know, I think a lot of guys can relate to that, you know, that being unsure of yourself, you know. Don't let that keep you from living your life. I like that, and I like that part of Durden's philosophy as well. But that was my favorite part of the movie. I feel I really had to throw that in, because that was kind of like the thing I was building up to this whole time, and I forgot to say it, so just had to add that right at the very end here. And this is the actual end, so.